This whole documentary is brought to you by Caden Henry and Brody Surgeon on the United States lakes and ponds. And just remember, guys, without the lakes, then life is fake. That was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. For the lakes of the United States, we chose Crater Lake as our lake to do our specific research on here. And so I'm going to give you the annual precipitation and weather for Crater Lake in Oregon. Alright, so there's 33 inches of rain a year and 117 inches of snow in Crater Lake. And the average temperature in the fall is 38 degrees, the winter is 29 degrees, spring 37.5 degrees, and summer is 54 degrees. Here's our charts. Let's see. There's one. That's the rainfall there. So yeah, that's the annual precipitation and weather for Crater Lake in Oregon. So for Crater Lake in Oregon, we decided to do for our plants and animals. Starting with the plants, we got the fireweed here, our flowering plant. Here's the lodgepole pine, one of our trees, and the mountain hemlock here is our other tree. And on this screen here, we've got as our mammal and elk, as the bird, the western tanager. Woo! I'm leaving that in there. Invertebrate, we got the crayfish. The fish, the rainbow trout, and amphibian is the Pacific chorus frog. Let you guys get a closer look at that. Oh, number 2. There we go. And on the screen. There you go. That's the animals and plants of Crater Lake. Alright, as you guys can tell, Caden's not been in the video yet. That I promise he will be, and he's just not with me, so we're going to keep trucking on without him. And so here's the food web of Oregon Lake, or Crater Lake in Oregon. At top, we got the tertiary consumer. It's the rainbow trout. And then we got a secondary consumers are the crab spider and black jezebel. And as our primary consumers, we have the crayfish and newts. Producers are algae and phytoplankton. And Bethnic bacteria is our decomposer. Let you guys get a better look at that chart. There we go. Headphone volume up.
Lakes and ponds in the U.S. 3 states that have lakes in them are Minnesota, Michigan, and Oregon.
Alright, so since we had the USA, the lakes of the USA, we chose to do obviously the United States, the indigenous people of the United States, the early explorers and settlers of the United States. So the indigenous people were the Native Americans. They had customs of using tobacco and sweat lodge ceremonies. Fasting and singing was also part of their culture. Early explorers of the United States were Christopher Columbus, Leif Erikson, and many more. Christopher Columbus explored America in 1492. He tried to find a new route to Asia, but he failed, and so that's how he ended up in the U.S. Leif Erikson, around 1000 A.D., he sailed off his course on his way to Greenland and landed on the U.S. continent, and that's how he discovered the United States of America. In 1607, settlers from England came to America and started the first colony called Jamestown, what is known as present-day Virginia. The colony had a rough start with the problem of starvation and illness, but tobacco saved the colony. Not many people know Jamestown was not the first settlement. Among another colony called the Roanoke was started but failed, and so Jamestown was considered the first permanent civilization. So here's a chart on that. As you can see, we've got the Native Americans here as our indigenous people, Christopher Columbus and Leif Erikson as our 2 early explorers of the United States, and Jamestown as the English settlers as our first settlement here, Jamestown. So lakes and ponds have been impacted by many things, but the one we chose was global warming. It has caused creation of dead zones, effects on reproduction. Global warming has also affected spreading of diseases and displacement of cold water in these lakes and ponds. But not only has it affected only the lakes and ponds, it affects the people around it in ways such as spreading diseases, poor air quality, extreme heat, and natural disasters. To give you guys a better look of global warming and what it's doing to these ponds and lakes, here's an example. As you can see, the lake gets smaller and smaller throughout the years. This is all due to global warming. So back to Crater Lake. One of our only invasive species in Crater Lake of fish is the kokanee salmon. They inhabit the lake, specifically Crater Lake, where it's one of two species that survived out of the 7 that were stocked initially in Crater Lake. To give you a better picture of what a kokanee salmon may look like, here is a kokanee salmon. Jen? Better than you tell my mom I just did that. I will personally fine you. Alright, so to preserve lakes and ponds around the United States, groups like the DNR, which stands for Department of Natural Resources, the Alliance for Great Lakes, and Conservation Minnesota are all groups that are working to preserve lakes and ponds. And the way just ordinary people are preserving them are by planting native trees and vegetation to prevent erosion and limiting the spread of animals that are harmful to the lakes, like zebra mussels and chestnuts. So to give you guys a visual representation of those, here's the Department of Natural Resources, Conservation Minnesota, and the Alliance for Great Lakes. And here's people planting trees in soil, and here's a picture of zebra mussels and chestnuts, which people are trying to limit the spread of. So lastly from me, guys, I know that was pretty iffy, not a real exciting documentary, but
yeah, it was boring.
Here we go. The laws that are put in place to preserve these lakes and ponds around the United States are laws like no wake zones to prevent erosion, and boating and fishing laws to prevent aquatic invasive species, requiring the removal of boat plugs and disposal of unused bait fish. Headphone warning. There's that.
3 facts are: man-made lakes are known as reservoirs. Lake Superior is the largest lake in North America, and the most ponds, sunlight can reach the bottom of the pond.
Like I said earlier, sorry it's boring. Try spicing it up for you guys.